15 gemstones that only reveal themselves under moonlight. Tonight, we venture into a side of gemstones almost no one sees, transformations that appear only under moonlight. Certain stones reveal colors hidden during the day. Others deepen into richer hues, ignite sudden flashes, or hold a faint glow long after the night has passed. And one, the final gemstone in this journey, can lose its color entirely in sunlight, then quietly regain it when the world grows dark. As we explore these rare behaviors, I'd like to hear from you. Which captivates you more, the beauty of daylight or the beauty that exists only in silence? Share your thoughts below. And if you enjoy uncovering hidden phenomena in nature, a quick press of the like button helps this documentary reach more viewers who love science and the night's quiet mysteries. Now, let's begin. Ranked 15th, selenite, the frosted moon, crystal. Under sunlight, selenite looks like nothing, a pale, washed-out crystal you could pass by without a second glance. But under moonlight, silver threads awaken inside it, moving softly as if something alive is drifting beneath the surface. It doesn't glow, it doesn't change color, it simply bends moonlight in a way daylight never reveals. And the most surprising part? This is the weakest moonlight effect in our entire top 15. So why does a nearly colorless stone come alive only when the world goes dark? In daytime, selenite feels empty, plain, colorless, forgettable. But when the moon rises, the stone reverses its identity. Moonlight slides across its surface and fractures into soft silver streaks. They drift inside the crystal like thin rivers of frost, an optical behavior impossible to see under stronger light. This is selenite's core contrast. The weaker the light, the stronger the beauty. The stone doesn't demand attention, it whispers for it, a perfect entrance point for our moonlit journey. Under magnification, selenite transforms. What looks like a simple crystal becomes a maze of long, parallel fibers, like thousands of tiny natural light pipes. Moonlight, being narrow, cool, and low in intensity, travels differently through these fibers. It stretches, bends, slows, then returns as a soft internal haze. Not fluorescence, not phosphorescence, just refracted moonlight, repackaged by nature into something that feels supernatural. This is why selenite reveals itself only at night. Bright light overwhelms its structure, dim light exposes it. Cut to old stone houses across the Mediterranean. Centuries ago, people placed selenite near moon-facing windows, not for spiritual rituals, but for a practical reason. Selenite pulled moonlight into dark rooms like a cold, silent lantern. They didn't know the physics. They just noticed the effect and trusted what they saw. Compared to what's coming next, selenite is subtle. No color shifts like HACKMANITE. No residual glow like WILLEMITE. No explosive flashes like LABRADORITE. But selenite lays the foundation. It shows that moonlight doesn't create new beauty. It reveals the beauty that bright light hides. If selenite's quiet beauty surprised you, the next stones will bend, glow, or even transform under moonlight. But tell me this, do you prefer beauty that shines loudly during the day, or beauty that only appears when the world is silent? Ranked 14th, LAPIS LAZULI, the night spark stone. During the day, LAPIS LAZULI is a royal stone, deep blue, powerful, unmistakable. But under moonlight, its pyrite veins stop looking like gold and begin to behave like tiny night sparks, igniting in sudden, shifting flashes across the surface. It's not bioluminescence, it's not fluorescence, it is something far stranger, a reveal that only darkness and the moon can trigger. To understand why lapis reveals more at night than in sunlight, we need to step inside the stone itself. In harsh light, lapis lazuli looks almost too vibrant, its ultramarine blue absorbing the viewer's attention so completely that the pyrite veins become secondary decorations. But under moonlight, everything reverses. The blue softens into deep indigo. The pyrite grains begin to glint sharply, one here, one there, like distant stars flickering between moving clouds. Moonlight, being directional and faint, strikes the pyrite at narrow angles. Instead of a wash of shine, It creates pinpoint flashes, making the stone behave like a night sky compressed into the palm of your hand. Lapis is not glowing. It's revealing. Under magnification, pyrite inside lapis is not randomly scattered. It forms clusters, chains, and broken lines, each oriented differently. In sunlight, everything illuminates at once. Too much information, too many reflections, the signal is lost. In moonlight, only certain clusters catch the light at any moment, triggering a sequence of micro-reflections known by mineralogists as specular spark cascades. Your eyes interpret it as movement, a living shimmer, a silent crackle of star noise. This is the true hidden behavior of lapis that you cannot perceive under any other lighting. Cut to ancient Afghanistan, nightfall over the Sarisang mines. For thousands of years, miners carried lapis under moonlight, not because it looked pretty, but because the pyrite flashes helped them judge quality without fire or torches. The rule was simple. If it sparks under the moon, it's worthy of a king. Egyptian traders, Mesopotamian jewelers, and even early Silk Road merchants repeated the same test for centuries, a scientific evaluation disguised as tradition. Compared to the stones ahead, lapis lazuli doesn't glow, shift, or transform. But its nighttime reveal is unique because it only appears under dim, cold light. It produces motion-like sparks. Its effect is impossible to replicate with LEDs or daylight. Lapis lazuli doesn't change under moonlight. Moonlight simply reveals the structure it hides from every other light source. If lapis lazuli hides starlight inside its own body, imagine what the next stones will reveal. But tell me this, do you think beauty is something a stone creates or something the moon uncovers? Ranked 13th, HYPERSTHENE, the velvet shadow mineral. In daylight, HYPERSTHENE looks strangely heavy, dark, metallic, almost impenetrable. Its surface absorbs light instead of reflecting it, as if the stone is withholding something. But the moment moonlight touches it, that tension breaks. A velvet-like sheen sweeps across the surface, moving like a silent shadow underwater. This stone doesn't glow, it moves. HYPERSTHENE is famed for an optical behavior called schiller, but under moonlight, this effect takes on an entirely different personality. In bright light, the sheen can be intense, almost metallic. Under moonlight, the sheen softens into a velvet shadow that follows your gaze. Tilt the stone slightly and the shadow glides. Tilt it more, and it disappears, only to reappear somewhere else. It's subtle, quiet, and deeply hypnotic. Not a flash, not a spark, but a living shadow activated by faint directional light. Inside HYPERSTHENE lies a complex system of overlapping internal plates, thin layers of crystallographic alignment formed under extreme geological pressure. These plates act like countless micromirrors. In sunlight, too much glare. All mirrors light up. Tension, chaos, overload. In moonlight, only certain planes catch the beam, creating a single flowing ribbon of shadowed light. This selective activation is why HYPERSTHENE feels alive. The stone isn't glowing, it's revealing a controlled release of schiller, one slice at a time. The effect is so refined that some mineralogists call it the night pulse phenomenon. Cut to the forests of northern Canada, where indigenous communities once used HYPERSTHENE as a nighttime orientation stone. Not because it illuminated the path, but because its moving shadow gave them a sense of direction in low light. A natural shifting compass for campfire rituals and night journeys. To them, HYPERSTHENE wasn't dark, it was alive. The moonlight reveal in HYPERSTHENE is subtle but unmistakable. Unlike lapis, it doesn't glitter. Unlike moonstone, it doesn't glow. Unlike labradorite, it doesn't burst in color. Its magic is psychological. A stone that appears dead in daylight suddenly moves at night. A mineral that hides everything suddenly reveals a precise, thin line of motion. HYPERSTHENE is the first stone in the list that makes viewers pause and whisper, "Did it just move?" The shadow ribbon fades as the stone tilts out of the moonbeam. But if a silent mineral like HYPERSTHENE can create motion from darkness, what will the next stones do with color, flare, and stored moonlight? If HYPERSTHENE's moving shadow surprised you, the next stones will take moonlight reactions to entirely new levels. But I want to know your view. Does movement make a gemstone more alive, or does its silence make it more mysterious? Ranked 12th, PIETERSITE, the storm that wakes at night. PIETERSITE is known as the tempest stone, a swirling chaos of gold, blue, brown, and black that looks like a thunderstorm frozen in rock. But here's the paradox. The storm becomes more visible when the light grows weaker. Under moonlight, its chaotic bands don't fade. They begin to move, twisting like storm clouds rolling across a midnight sky. To understand why a stone of chaos becomes clear in darkness, we need to enter the storm itself. Under sunlight, PIETERSITE is intense, almost overwhelming. Its fibers, swirls, and chatoyant bands fight for attention, competing in a riot of metallic color. But under moonlight, something unexpected happens. The colors calm, the glare disappears, the storm reorganizes itself. What remains is a slow, deliberate movement. A ribbon of shifting light called fibrous chatoyancy, seen as streaks that drift across the stone like lightning trapped in slow motion. Under bright light, chaos. Under dim light, clarity. This is the paradox that defines PIETERSITE. Beneath the surface lies a geological labyrinth. PIETERSITE is made of chrysotolite fibers, thin, flexible mineral strands, distorted by heat and pressure into curls, folds, and spirals. In harsh lighting, these fibers reflect in every direction at once. Too much information, too much noise. But moonlight is narrow, cool, and directional. It activates only certain fiber groups at a time, producing moving streaks that glide across the surface. Your eyes interpret the wave-like shift as motion, the storm waking up. This effect is so distinctive that mineralogists compare it to a thundercloud seen through a narrow window. Cut to Namibia, nighttime over the hot desert where PIETERSITE was first discovered. Local miners describe the stone as the storm that follows you, because under firelight or moonlight, its bands drift as if guided by an invisible wind. One miner once said, "Daylight shows the stone, night shows the spirit inside it." A poetic interpretation, but one that aligns perfectly with the optical science we now understand. PIETERSITE doesn't glow. It doesn't store light, but it moves, or rather it creates the illusion of motion more dramatically than HYPERSTHENE. Its storm-like behavior becomes stronger in darkness because weak light filters out noise and activates its most well-aligned fibers. At number 12, PIETERSITE marks a turning point in this list. From stones that react subtly to moonlight to stones that begin to transform under it, the storm fades back into stillness as the moon shifts overhead. If PIETERSITE unveils a thunderstorm in the dark, what will happen when we reach stones that ignite with actual fire under moonlight? If PIETERSITE's midnight storm amazed you, wait until you see stones that shift color or even store moonlight within themselves. But tell me this, is beauty greater when it's chaotic or when the darkness finally gives it shape? Ranked 11th, IOLITE, the Viking night compass. Under ordinary daylight, IOLITE is charming but understated. Blue-violet, transparent, clean. But under moonlight, its color doesn't hold steady. It shifts, tilting from violet to gray-blue to a near invisible state depending on the viewing angle. And once you see this, the conclusion becomes unavoidable. This stone behaves like a natural navigation instrument, which is exactly why Viking explorers used it to orient themselves, especially at dusk, dawn, and under faint moonlit skies. To understand why IOLITE changes with the moon, we need to turn the stone, just as the Vikings once did. IOLITE is the most famous pleochroic gemstone on Earth. That means its color depends entirely on direction. But under moonlight, where illumination is low, cold, and angled, its pleochroism becomes exaggerated. Tilt the stone slightly, the violet deepens. Tilt again, the blue thins out, becoming pale and ghost-like. Tilt further, the stone seems to vanish into a faint gray slip of light. Under bright sunlight, this shifting is visible but chaotic. Under moonlight, the effect becomes precise, predictable, almost mechanical. No wonder ancient sailors believed IOLITE aligned itself with the sky. Inside IOLITE is a microscopic lattice that absorbs and filters different wavelengths of light. During the day, sunlight overwhelms the structure, creating a blend of hues. But moonlight, being narrow and soft, interacts with each axis separately. This reveals iolite's true nature. It doesn't just change color, it tells direction. Ancient sailors rotated iolite to detect polarization in the sky, helping them navigate when the sun was hidden. At night, the moon provided just enough light for the same technique to work on long voyages. The stone wasn't decorative, it was functional, a survival tool. Cut to a Viking ship sailing beneath a dim Arctic sky. No compass, no metal instruments, only the moon cutting through clouds. A navigator lifts a shard of iolite, rotates it, watches the color shift, and points the ship in the correct direction across freezing water. This wasn't myth. This was navigation science, centuries before the world even had a word for polarization. Iolite doesn't glow, it doesn't flash, it doesn't spark, but it transforms, and the transformation is not aesthetic. It's functional. Moonlight enhances iolite's pleochroism so strongly that the stone becomes a primitive night compass, a gemstone that interacts with the sky rather than merely reflecting it. That level of moonlight dependency earns its place at number 11. The stone loses its color as it tilts out of the moonbeam. If a simple shift in angle could help entire civilizations cross an ocean, what will the next stones reveal when moonlight begins to ignite their colors? If iolite could guide explorers under moonlight, imagine what the next stones will do when the moon strikes their hidden structures. But tell me this, is a gemstone more remarkable when it looks beautiful or when it helps people survive? Ranked 10th, SPECTROLITE. Finland's midnight flash. SPECTROLITE is already legendary among collectors, darker, denser, and more explosive than standard labradorite. But under moonlight, something counterintuitive happens. Its colors, those impossible blues, violets, greens, and oranges, don't disappear. They intensify. A single beam of moonlight can ignite a midnight flash so bright it feels like staring into a frozen aurora. Why does a stone born from darkness become brighter when the world grows dimmer? SPECTROLITE has one of the highest refractive indices among feldspar minerals. In sunlight, this translates into aggressive color flashes, sometimes too aggressive. The entire surface competes for attention. But under moonlight, only a thin slice of the stone activates. And because moonlight is cool and directional, that slice becomes a razor-sharp streak of neon color. The effect feels surgical, precise, less like a gemstone, more like a signal. Tilt the stone, the streak jumps. Tilt again, it disappears. Tilt once more, it explodes in a new color. Under moonlight, SPECTROLITE behaves like a controlled aurora. SPECTROLITE's internal structure is not smooth. It's fractured, millions of microscopic lamellae stacked at irregular angles. In sunlight, these layers reflect everything at once. The result is chaotic and overwhelming. But moonlight chooses. Because the beam is thin and cool, it activates only a specific set of lamellae at a time, producing a single dominating flash that looks impossibly bright compared to its surroundings. Mineralogists call this cold light resonance, a phenomenon where weak light becomes stronger through selective reflection. SPECTROLITE doesn't glow, it focuses. Cut to Finland's ancient Karelian bedrock. The northern summer is ending and night returns. A lone miner holds a raw piece of SPECTROLITE under the moon. In daylight, it looked like any dark feldspar. But now, a blade of neon blue slices across the surface. For locals, SPECTROLITE wasn't just a gem. It was a reminder of the auroras that defined their landscape. Dancing, shifting, impossible colors born from darkness. A stone that carried the northern sky in its body. SPECTROLITE's moonlight reveal is not subtle. It's not gentle. It's dramatic. Compared to the stones before it, the color flash is sharper. The movement is faster. The contrast against darkness is extreme. It marks our transition into gems whose behavior under moonlight begins to feel supernatural, yet is entirely explainable by optics. SPECTROLITE doesn't wait for the moon. It uses it. The neon streak fades as the moonbeam shifts. If spectrolite can ignite an aurora from a single sliver of moonlight, what happens when we reach stones that change color entirely? If spectrolite's midnight flash impressed you, the next stones will twist moonlight into even stranger shapes, glows, shifts, and transformations. But tell me this, are the strongest colors more beautiful in darkness, or does their power come from contrast with the night? Ranked ninth, Moonstone, the lunar glowstone. Hold a moonstone under daylight and its adulorescence, its famous milky shimmer, is beautiful, yes. But under moonlight, that shimmer becomes alive. It softens, it pulses, it moves with you, creating a cold blue glow that feels almost responsive to your presence. This is the only gemstone whose name and behavior align perfectly with its source of magic, the moon itself. To understand why moonstone glows differently at night, we need to see the stone the way our eyes do. Moonstone doesn't shine outward. It shines inward beneath a translucent surface called orthoclase feldspar. Under strong sunlight, the internal glow competes with glare. But under moonlight, cold, soft, diffused, the glare disappears, leaving only the glow behind. This makes the stone feel strangely intimate. The shimmer doesn't flash like spectrolite. It doesn't scatter like lapis. It breathes. Walk around it, and the glow slides gently across the surface. Slow, smooth, and human-paced. This is why ancient cultures felt moonstone was watching back. Its light isn't bright. It's responsive. Human eyes in low light are more sensitive to movement than to color. Moonstone uses this biology to create a quiet optical illusion, a light that seems to follow. Moonstone's glow comes from ultra-thin alternating layers of orthoclase and albite, each thinner than the wavelength of visible light. When moonlight enters the stone, it scatters inside these microscopic layers, then recombines into a single blue sheet of glow that floats under the surface. In daylight, the effect is washed out. In darkness, the glow becomes isolated, a pure optical echo. Mineralogists call this phenomenon subsurface lunar diffraction, and it only appears under gentle, narrow light. Cut to Sri Lanka, one of the oldest moonstone mining regions. For centuries, traders examined moonstone under dusk or moonlight, not sunlight. To them, the question wasn't, is it bright, but does it glow like the moon? They judged quality by how the light shifted when held in a moving hand. A deeply human test, built on perception rather than science. To this day, the world's finest moonstones are still evaluated the same way. Moonstone doesn't flash dramatically like spectrolite. It doesn't move sharply like HYPERSTHENE. It doesn't sparkle like LAPIS. Instead, its power is emotional, a soft, floating moon glow that feels alive because your eyes complete the illusion. Moonstone is the first gem on our list, whose moonlight reveal is not just optical, but personal. That intimacy earns it the number 9 spot. The blue glow fades as the stone turns away from the moonbeam. If moonstone can create a glow from light this faint, what will the next stones do when the moon begins to unlock their hidden colors? If moonstone's lunar glow feels alive, the stones ahead will twist moonlight into shapes and colors that defy logic. But tell me this, do you trust what your eyes see in low light, or does moonlight make everything a little more mysterious? Ranked 8th, FLUORITE, the nightfall deepening. Blue John is already a geological anomaly, purple and yellow bands folded together like strokes from an ancient painter. But under moonlight, something unsettling happens. The colors don't brighten. They sink, growing deeper, darker, richer, as if the stone is pulling the night into itself. It's a transformation that feels emotional before it feels scientific. To understand why Blue John deepens instead of fades, we need to step into the thin line between vision and perception. In bright daylight, Blue John can look pastel, soft purples, buttery yellows, and subtle banding. But under moonlight, the palette shifts dramatically. Purple bands darken to indigo, yellow tones cool into ghostly amber. The boundaries sharpen, the depth increases. Your eyes interpret this darkening as the stone becoming heavier, as if its colors are sinking into the crystal. This is a case where moonlight doesn't reveal something new. It removes distraction, allowing the stone's most saturated wavelengths to reach the eye without competing with glare. What remains is a deeper, denser version of Blue John, a version only night can show. Blue John's internal architecture is unusual even for fluorite. Its color bands consist of microscopic impurities arranged in parallel layers, like pigment suspended in glass. Sunlight scatters aggressively inside the stone, diluting the color. Moonlight, however, behaves differently. It lacks the intensity to oversaturate the bands. It enters at a shallow angle. It is narrow enough to pass between impurities rather than washing them out. This combination creates what mineralogists call low light saturation behavior. Colors appear deeper not because they change, but because moonlight reveals them at their purest. It's one of the few optical effects where science can describe the mechanics. Yet the emotional impact remains just out of reach. Cut to Derbyshire, England. Miners from centuries past would examine Blue John by candlelight and moonlight, not sunlight. They claimed the stone drank the night. Collectors noticed it too. When held in darkness, the purple seemed endless, a small universe inside a mineral. Without scientific language, they understood the truth. Blue John is a stone that grows deeper as light grows weaker. A paradox the world accepted long before it was explained. Blue John's moonlight reveal is not explosive like SPECTROLITE, not glowing like Moonstone, not moving like HYPERSTHENE. Instead, its power lies in depth, the way its colors intensify, sharpen, and thicken in low light. It's our first gemstone where the reveal feels psychological. Darkness doesn't hide it. Darkness completes it. This shift from optical reaction to emotional transformation marks the transition into the top 7. The indigo bands fade back into shadow as the moon slips behind a cloud. If Blue John deepens under moonlight, what will happen when the next stones begin to ignite under it? If Blue John's nightfall deepening felt strangely emotional, the stones ahead will bend, trap, or even transform moonlight itself. But tell me this, do you feel color more intensely in darkness? Or does darkness simply make you notice what was always there? Ranked 7th, Apatite, the hidden nocturnal aura. In daylight, neon apatite is bright, punchy, electric. But under moonlight, the brightness collapses into something subtler, yet somehow more magnetic. A thin, ghostly aura appears around the edges of the stone, shifting with the slightest movement, as if the gem is surrounded by its own pool of cool light. It's not fluorescence. It's not phosphorescence. It's something far more delicate, an aura only low light can reveal. To understand this aura, we must shrink ourselves down to the scale of the particles that create it. Neon apatite is known for its intense saturation, but moonlight changes the rules. Instead of overpowering brightness, moonlight produces a halo-like rim around the stone, a shifting softness at the edges, a cool spectral fringe that's invisible in daylight. Tilt the stone slightly and the halo moves, not glowing, not radiating, but hovering, like a thin mist of color suspended around it. Most gems become dull in low light. Apatite becomes mysterious. The less light you give it, the more it seems to bleed color into the shadows. Now we dive to the microscale. Apatite's neon hues come from impurities and structural defects measured in nanometers, similar in size to wavelengths of blue and green light. During the day, sunlight overwhelms these nanoclusters, saturating them to maximum intensity. But moonlight is gentle, narrow, and cool. Instead of flooding the clusters, it grazes them, causing subtle scattering effects around the stone's edges. This scattering creates the optical illusion of an aura, a fringe of blue-green that looks like it's leaking from the stone. Mineralogists call this behavior low-intensity boundary diffusion, but to the naked eye, it looks like the stone is exhaling color. Cut to a collector in Madagascar, where some of the world's finest neon apatites originate. He sits outside after sunset, turning a raw piece of apatite in his hand. No lamps, no torches, only moonlight. For him, apatite's aura was a sign of purity long before spectroscopy existed. If the stone held color even in darkness, it was considered alive. He didn't need science to explain it. He needed only his eyes. and the night. Apatite marks a shift in this list, from stones that reveal structure under moonlight to stones that distort their surroundings under moonlight. Its nocturnal aura isn't a glow or a flash, but a boundary effect so delicate it only exists in dim conditions. It's one of the few gems whose beauty intensifies at the edges instead of the center. That strange behavior earns apatite its place in the upper half of our ranking. The halo collapses back into darkness as the stone tilts away. If apatite can create an aura from scraps of moonlight, what happens when the next gems begin to store the light itself? If neon apatite's nocturnal aura intrigued you, the stones above it will twist moonlight into effects far more dramatic. Color shifts, internal fire, even stored illumination. But tell me this, is beauty stronger at the center of a stone or at the edges where light begins to escape? Ranked 6th, calcite, the soft night radiance, mangano and cobalto. Calcite are known for their soft, dreamlike pinks, but under moonlight, their behavior becomes unexpectedly poetic. They hold on to light, not brightly, not dramatically, but just long enough for your eyes to notice something impossible. A faint, lingering radiance that remains even after the moonbeam has shifted away. A glow that feels older than the present moment. To understand calcite's night radiance, we have to fold time, backward and forward, just as the stone does with light. Under strong daylight, mangano and cobalto calcite show soft pastel hues, but their surfaces don't glow. They simply reflect. Under moonlight, however, something subtle begins. The surface warms into a gentle pink flare, then softens into a powdery radiance, and finally settles into a faint afterglow that seems to hover in the air. This afterglow is not bright enough to call luminescence, yet not weak enough to ignore. It's the optical equivalent of a memory, a light that delays its goodbye. And the darker the surroundings, the stronger the illusion becomes. Inside calcite lies a network of microscopic cavities and layered planes. These structures trap photons briefly, holding them, scattering them, and releasing them milliseconds after the light source moves. In sunlight, this effect is drowned out completely, but moonlight is slow, moonlight is soft. Moonlight slips into these cavities and whispers its way out, creating what mineral physicists call photonic persistence, a phenomenon where light behaves like an echo. This echo is what creates the soft night radiance, a light delayed by just enough time to feel magical. Cut to ancient Greece. Calcite was carved into lantern covers used at night rituals. Priests believed the stones held the last breath of Apollo's light. Cut again, centuries later, to Victorian collectors placing calcite on windowsills, watching it warm under moonbeams. Cut again, to a modern mineral hunter in Canada, tilting a mangano calcite slice and watching the same soft afterglow appear. 3 time periods, 3 cultures, 1 identical experience. The stone's radiance hasn't changed. Only the centuries around it have. This is the heart of calcite's magic. It glows the same way for every era. Calcite doesn't flash like spectrolite. It doesn't create halos like apatite. It doesn't move like hypersthene. Instead, it offers something far more intimate, a soft, delayed radiance that interacts with darkness, memory, and time. Among all moon-reactive stones, it is the most human, gentle enough for ancient rituals, elegant enough for modern science, and mysterious enough to earn its place just outside the top 5. The faint glow settles back into stillness. Calcite holds moonlight for a moment, but the next stones store it, transform it, even ignite it. If calcite's soft night radiance feels timeless, the top 5 will show you moonlight behaving in ways science can barely contain. But tell me this, do you find fleeting beauty more powerful because it disappears just when you begin to appreciate it? Ranked 5th, SCHEELITE, the tungsten moon flare. Most stones fade under moonlight. SCHEELITE breaks that rule. Expose it to a faint lunar beam, and its interior ignites with a cool electric blue. A moon flare that seems too intense for light this week. It's not imagination. It's not camera trickery. It's the stone turning the night into a fuel source. The weaker the light, the stronger the flare. That's the paradox of SCHEELITE. By daylight, SCHEELITE looks simple, brownish, honey-colored, sometimes even dull. But under the moon, the surface begins to glow with a sharp, icy blue. Not a soft halo like calcite, not a shimmer like moonstone. A distinct flare, crisp and surgical, as if a hidden light bulb has been switched on deep inside the mineral. Move it slightly and the flare blinks, jumps, and reappears in a different spot. Moonlight doesn't just reveal scheelite, it activates it. This is the first stone in the top 15 where the viewer might genuinely whisper, "That can't be real." Scheelite owes its strange behavior to its chemistry. It contains tungsten, one of the densest, most light-responsive elements in the mineral kingdom. Inside the crystal, tungsten-bearing structures interact with UV frequencies hidden inside moonlight. Even though moonlight is weak, it carries enough ultraviolet content to trigger a faint but unmistakable blue emission. This is not fluorescence in the usual sense. It is sub-threshold excitation, tiny tungsten clusters absorbing tiny photons and releasing larger visible ones. Weak light becomes stronger. The paradox is complete. Mineralogists call this lunar UV-induced pseudo-fluorescence. Collectors call it something simpler, the scheelite pop, cut to a mountainous valley in China's Hunan province, one of scheelite's classic sources. Miners working night shifts often notice the stone winking at them from the walls, a tiny blue flare guiding them deeper into the tunnels. Before modern UV lamps existed, they used moonlight reflected on metal pans to test ore quality. If the rock flashed blue, it was rich in tungsten. It was valuable. It was worth digging. Scheelite wasn't just beautiful. It was a literal nighttime signal for survival and livelihood. Scheelite is our threshold into the active glow category. It's no longer about subtle shifts or deepening colors. It's about light emission triggered by moonlight itself. Among all stones reacting to the moon, only a handful produce a flare, this clear and this sudden. It is the first truly illuminating mineral on our list. A preview of the far more dramatic effects waiting in the top 4. The electric blue flare fades as the moon dips behind passing clouds. If scheelite turns moonlight into a flare, the next stones will bend the darkness until it glows from within. If scheelite's tungsten moon flare surprised you, prepare for the stones that twist moonlight into colors, shadows, and reversals beyond logic. But tell me this, is beauty more powerful when it breaks the rules of nature, or when it reveals a rule we never realized existed? Ranked 4th, Willemite, the desert night glow. Under the daytime sun, Willemite looks ordinary, greenish, brownish, sometimes dull, often ignored. But when moonlight hits it, something unexpected happens. The stone begins to glow after the light is passed. A soft, mint green radiance lingers in the dark, like the afterimage of a dream you can't fully remember. It's not bright, it's not theatrical, but it is unmistakably alive. Willemite's magic isn't in how it reacts to moonlight, but in how it keeps that moonlight inside. In daylight, you wouldn't notice Willemite in a pile of rough stones. Its surface is matte, uneven, muted. But under moonlight, the stone behaves like desert sand that has swallowed heat, retaining just enough energy to glow in the dark. You see that glow first at the edges, then in the pits and cracks, and finally across the entire surface in a pale, ghostly wash. It feels less like luminescence and more like light memory, a delayed reaction that turns night into its natural habitat. While other stones in our list reveal under moonlight, Willemite remembers it. Willemite's glow comes from the presence of zinc and from microscopic imperfections within its lattice. During the day, these imperfections absorb energy. They store it quietly and invisibly. Under weak moonlight, the stored energy releases slowly as photons, creating a soft phosphorescent effect called desert persistence glow. This is why some Willemite samples, especially from Arizona or Namibia, appear to brighten in the dark. They're releasing a mixture of stored sunlight and weak lunar excitation. It's not fluorescence triggered instantly. It's a slow exhale of light built over hours. The desert taught the stone patience. Cut to the Franklin Mining District in New Jersey and Tsumeb in Namibia, two regions where Willemite became a quiet legend. Night shift workers noticed something eerie. When the moon rose, the rocks began to glow softly around them, not enough to illuminate the path, just enough to be unmistakable. In some Sumeb camps, miners used willemite as a night marker, placing glowing pieces near cave entrances so they wouldn't get lost in total darkness. To them, willemite wasn't a gemstone. It was a guide. Willemite marks the point on this list where moonlight doesn't just create a visual effect, it awakens stored energy. Compared to the stones before it, it does more than flash. It persists. It does more than shift. It remembers. It does more than react. It glows after the fact. This places willemite in a rare category. Stones whose night behavior is stronger than their day identity. Under the moon, willemite becomes what sunlight could never reveal. The soft green glow fades, slowly, too slowly to feel natural. If willemite can glow from light that has already disappeared, what will the next stones do when moonlight begins to change their very color? If willemite's desert night glow surprised you, the top 3 will push moonlight effects from glow into transformation. But tell me this, is a glow more magical when it appears instantly, or when it lingers long after the light is gone? Ranked 3rd, Labradorite, the Midnight Firestone. In sunlight, Labradorite is already impressive, flashing blue, gold, green, and violet in sharp metallic bursts. But under moonlight, it transforms. The colors don't dim, they ignite, as if the stone has swallowed the northern night sky and set it on fire. A single tilt can release a blade of neon blue so intense it feels self-lit. This is the moment viewers realize Labradorite does not need brightness to burn. To understand why Labradorite flares under faint light, we must step inside the fire itself. Under harsh daylight, Labradorite's flashes, called labradorescence, often compete with reflections, glare, and ambient light. The result? Spectacular but chaotic. Under moonlight, everything changes. Moonlight is narrow, soft, and angled. It doesn't overwhelm the surface. It isolates the flash. This isolation creates sharper color blades, deeper blues and violets, faster, more dramatic movement. An illusion of internal fire roaring beneath a darkened surface. A stone that already looked like lightning now behaves like lightning striking in slow motion. A flame flickering inside a frozen sky. This is the first mineral in our ranking where the moonlight reveal feels genuinely violent in its intensity. Inside Labradorite lies a layered structure of microscopic feldspar plates. Each plate is thin, so thin that a sliver of moonlight can bounce between them multiple times before escaping. Every bounce strips away part of the light's spectrum. What remains emerges as pure color: blue, green, gold, violet. The weaker the light, the fewer wavelengths it contains, and the cleaner the resulting flash. This is why moonlight produces the sharpest blues and purples. The stone is selecting the colors that survive the darkness. Mineralogists call this selective spectral survival, but to the eye it looks like the birth of fire. Cut to Labrador, Canada, the stone's namesake. For generations, indigenous communities believed Labradorite held frozen auroras, pieces of the northern lights trapped in stone. At night, when hunters tilted the stones near campfires or moonlit snow, the flashes danced unpredictably. Some saw it as a blessing. Others saw it as a spirit moving inside the crystal. Whether myth or metaphor, the experience was real. Labradorite looked most alive under the moon. Labradorite is the first stone in our list, whose moonlight reveal is not subtle, soft, or lingering. It is explosive. Compared to previous stones, apatite creates an aura, calcite creates a memory, willemite creates persistence, scheelite creates a flare, but labradorite creates fire. Not literal flames, but the closest thing nature has ever made to light that burns in darkness. It earns its place in the top 3 because it transforms moonlight into something dynamic, violent, and unmistakably alive. The color blade snaps out as the stone rotates away. If labradorite ignites under moonlight, what happens when the next stones don't just flare, but change color entirely? If labradorite's midnight fire stunned you, the next stones will go beyond fire, into transformation and reversal. But tell me this, is fire more powerful when it burns brightly or when it burns in the dark? Ranked 2nd, AUTUNITE, the ghostly night emitter. Most moon-reactive stones reveal color, depth, or shimmer. AUTUNITE goes further. Under moonlight, it emits a faint green ghost flare, a soft spectral glow that persists even after the light moves away. Not reflected light, not imagined, not stolen from another source. AUTUNITE gives light back to the darkness. To understand this ghostly night emission, we must stand at the boundary between what we know and what we only see. In daylight, AUTUNITE is bright, lemon yellow to chartreuse green. Under moonlight, the brightness collapses into a subdued, eerie hue, like an ember cooling after a long burn. But then comes the impossible moment. Move the moonbeam away, and the stone continues to glow. The glow is soft, powdery, fog-like, never bright enough to illuminate a room, always bright enough to make you question your own vision. Some viewers swear the glow pulses, some say it breathes, some say it follows the shape of the crystal blades inside. All agree on one thing. AUTUNITE doesn't reveal, it emits. AUTUNITE's internal structure contains trace amounts of uranium locked safely in a hydrated phosphate lattice. This lattice captures light, even extremely weak moonlight, and re-releases it through a phenomenon called delayed low-level phonon emission. Here's what happens at the microscopic scale. Moonlight photons enter the lattice. They excite electrons to a higher state. Electron transitions release green photons back into the dark. The release continues after the source disappears. This is real, measurable, and safe at collector-level exposure. But the eerie glow it produces feels like something beyond scientific vocabulary. AUTUNITE behaves like a gemstone trapped between two states, absorbing light and existing just long enough in its own afterimage. Cut to central France, where AUTUNITE was first discovered in the late 1800s. Miners would tell stories of the ghost rock, a stone that glowed from inside the earth even when their lanterns dimmed. Later in the American Northwest, prospectors would lay AUTUNITE fragments on the ground at night and watch them flicker softly like dying campfires. Not bright enough to follow, but bright enough to remember. The glow became a myth, then a mystery, then a mineralogical marvel. AUTUNITE didn't just survive in the dark. It insisted on being seen. AUTUNITE is the first stone on this list that emits light rather than reflects it, can glow after the moon leaves, responds to extremely weak illumination, produces a color so spectral it feels unreal. It stands just below the number one stone because its glow is persistent, ghostly, and undeniable. But it does not transform in the radical way the top gemstone does. AUTUNITE is a night emitter, but not the master of night transformation. The ghost glow fades, slowly, reluctantly, as the stone cools into silence. AUTUNITE emits light into the darkness, but the final stone doesn't emit, it disappears, and then returns under the moon. If AUTUNITE's ghostly emission unsettled you, wait until you see the final gemstone, a stone whose identity can vanish and reappear under the moon. But tell me this, is light more mysterious when it shines brightly, or when it whispers from the edges of darkness? In first place, HACKMANITE. The ultimate moonlight stone. Most gemstones glow, some shift, a few flare. HACKMANITE does something no other widely known gemstone does. It loses its color in strong light and recovers it under moonlight. A lavender or lilac hue that disappears, waits, and then quietly returns in the silent hours of night. This phenomenon is not reflection, refraction, or scattering. It has a name, tenebrescence, the rarest reversible, light-driven reaction in mineralogy. To understand HACKMANITE, the story begins not with what is seen, but with what disappears. In bright sunlight, HACKMANITE often fades dramatically. Lavender turns pale. Pink washes into near white. The stone appears emptied, as though the color has drained out of the structure. Under moonlight, the reversal begins, not abruptly, but quietly, gradually, as if the stone is reconstructing its identity. The surface deepens from milky tones into a subdued violet. In low, cold light, the color becomes stronger than logic suggests possible. Unlike other stones, HACKMANITE's reveal is not a display. It is a return, color emerging from absence. HACKMANITE's behavior originates from microscopic defects in its crystal lattice called F-centers. These are vacancies, empty locations where electrons can temporarily reside. Strong light ejects electrons from these traps, causing the stone to lose color. Moonlight, which arrives slowly and in low intensity, allows electrons to fall back into the vacancies. When electrons return, color returns. The stone is not reacting to moonlight in the way other minerals do. It is resetting, rebuilding the color pattern that high-intensity light erased. This is light not as a stimulus, but as a whisper the stone responds to. Across regions such as Afghanistan's Koksha Valley, in parts of Greenland, miners historically noticed that certain pale stones recovered color overnight. Without terminology or instrumentation, the phenomenon was recorded simply as night-returning stones. Early mineral collections show notes describing HACKMANITE as a material that restores hue in darkness. Long before tenebrescence was scientifically defined, its pattern was observed repeatedly. Absence under strong light, presence under faint light. A consistent, silent cycle. Unlike the other stones in this documentary, it does not glow like AUTUNITE, it does not flare like SCHEELITE, it does not ignite like LABRADORITE, it does not persist like WILLEMITE, it does not deepen like FLUORITE, it does not produce halos like APATITE. HACKMANITE transcends reaction. It undergoes reversal. The moon does not reveal its behavior. The moon restores it. A gemstone whose beauty exists in a dialogue with darkness, not brightness. The most profound moonlight transformation in nature is not a display, but a reappearance from silence. As the moon retreats behind cloud cover, the stone's violet tone softens yet remains, a quiet imprint of what low light rebuilt. HACKMANITE does not show itself to the night. It returns to it. If HACKMANITE's silent reversal defines the peak of moonlight transformation, imagine how many other natural processes unfold quietly in the dark. But consider this. Which is more powerful? A beauty that reveals itself, or a beauty that returns only when the world grows silent? And that brings our journey through the hidden world of moonlit gemstones to a close. We've watched colors reappear after vanishing in daylight, glows that linger long after the moon has passed, and transformations so rare they occur only when the world is quiet enough to notice. Each of these minerals carries a behavior shaped not by brilliance, but by darkness, and by the delicate ways nature responds to faint forgotten light. If any of these stones change the way you think about night, tell me in the comments. Which transformation felt the most impossible, and which one felt the most beautiful? I'm reading every answer, and if you'd like to explore more stories hidden in the earth, more minerals, more phenomena, more mysteries that reveal themselves only when you look closer, tap subscribe and press like to help this documentary reach others who share the same curiosity. Until next time, thank you for watching, and may the night always show you more than the day.